Welcome back, everybody, to the Brazilian Dragon podcast. Today, we are talking about Inside Out 2 from Pixar. And I am not a star hockey player, but I do love pizza and all types of pizza. And that's always in my stream of consciousness. My name is Felipe, and I am not alone. I am joined by someone who will never offer us rubber ducks, or a tape to get us out of situations. And it is Shannon. Shannon, how are you doing?
I'm great. I'm now trying to picture my stream of consciousness. I feel like it would just be blocked up with so much stuff that like the stream doesn't move. And then that's like a very good metaphor for me.
I feel like your and probably mine as well, stream of consciousness are more like concepts than like things that could manifest into items that would flow down the stream of consciousness. Like for Riley, it was like pizza, but
I
for
feel
me, it
like
would be like
I could have
Survivor
items.
season logos.
Yeah, I think I would just have cats. It would be
Cat-
actually kind of horrifying. They'd be like, get me out of this stream. And it would just be like so many cats down the stream of consciousness. And probably
Were there?
chocolate.
Ooh, I do like chocolate. Were there any cats in this movie? No.
There
This is
were.
like,
Riley loves cats. She's nice to cats.
yeah.
And I liked all the cat part. I can give you this is my stream of consciousness. That's what I'm saying. I do think the chocolate would be good because the cats could jump on them like life rafts. Um but in the one of my favorite parts, not to jump ahead, but the when they're like in the not the bad dreams, but like the thoughts keeping her up at night. And one of
Yeah.
the nice
Oh,
thoughts that they
yeah, I
put in
do
instead
remember.
was her and the cat. And I'm like, and that really resonated with me because often when I can't stop thinking like bad thoughts when I can't sleep, I'm often like, go to the cats, go to the cats. So it resonated. So there were cats that I
There,
thought of.
yeah, I do remember that one now. I remember that and the flowers. Just in case you're like, oh, should I watch Inside Out too? Will this podcast spoil me? Yes, we are gonna do
We just did
100% spoilers.
some of it. Yeah.
Um, so go watch the movie, then come back. This is only a safe space for those who have watched Inside Out 2, because spoilers abound, because that is in my stream of consciousness, all the Inside Out 2 spoilers. But
Yeah, definitely.
first off, Shannon, how are you doing?
I'm really good. I'm keen to be here with you. I'm happy that we got to do this. I really liked Inside Out, so I'm glad to be able to talk about it. But yeah, I'm doing well. You know, Survivor off season, doing some off season coverage, having a few days away with my mom next week, which will be nice. So
That's exciting.
enjoying my off season.
Yes, it's your vacation because you don't partake in the Big Brother, so you get to take a step back. And you're going to be at peace this summer because hopefully Sharia is not back in the house.
Yeah, I don't see myself watching it again. I feel like we captured some sort of magic with the Surrey cats, and then now it's gone. Like,
Yeah,
and even then, was the juice worth the squeeze? But I think it's done now. And now we're doing the other off season stuff. And I'll definitely, watch Big Brother from afar, like usual. Like I'll
like
definitely
the
be
Twitter
able to
streets.
like, yeah, the Twitter streets. I'll definitely be able to tell you what's going on, and in a couple of years, like identify people in some sort of quiz. But I don't see myself watching it. I had to download those episodes. Like I was going out of my way, you know?
You were really committed. Speaking of
Yeah.
last season of Big Brother, then we'll get into the actual meat and potatoes of this podcast. But it is one of our mutual favorites, Felicia's birthday, I believe, at
Oh,
least in the US
today.
at time of recording. It might be the day after her birthday
Oh,
in Australia. But I saw
I
someone
missed it.
tweeting about Felicia's birthday, and I was like, oh my God, effing Bowie Jane.
I didn't wish her. It's
Yeah,
too late now.
too late. But Felicia, what a gem. Like, at least we got to experience Shannon experiencing Felicia, if that was the only season we were going to get, because what a great
Yeah.
character.
It was worth it for Felicia because I already knew Suri, and it was actually
Yeah.
kind of hard to watch her go through something she hated. But like Felicia, I discovered Felicia and Izzy. That was like the gift of the season. They only probably and Corey. It was nice to watch Corey's
Yeah.
character.
Yeah.
There were some good
Um,
parts, just like drowned out in a stream of badness, like kittens would be.
yeah, no, that's Big Brother constantly. Like, there are very rare few seasons of Big Brother that like continue the momentum or like pick up at the end, whereas usually Big Brother like runs hot at the start and then like fizzles out at the end. Where well, this is not a Big Brother podcast. This is an Inside Out podcast. So, what is your history with the franchise or with Pixar as a whole? I know we talked a little bit about it last time you were here, but like Inside Out specifically.
Inside Out specifically. I mean, I don't feel like I have a history. Like I watched Inside Out and I liked it. That's probably
Yeah.
I love Pixar. You know, I love animated movies. I love Disney. Peter and I like were big Pixar fans. We watch like that's like our favorite thing to do. Find like a Pixar movie we somehow have missed. Like we did that with like Onward recently. I thought was good.
Oh, I
Um
love Onward.
yeah, and then like one of my favorites recently, well not recently in the last like few years was Luca. Love Luca.
I am obsessed with Luca. Oh my god. Yeah.
Luca's
That
an
one
exceptional movie.
I feel bad for Soul Luca and Turning Red because they got shafted by being on Disney Plus only, where And then like I feel like I don't know, at least a lot of the Twitter discourse I've seen from the cinephiles are like, oh, these movies got shafted because Disney Plus of the pandemic, and now a lot of the executives don't see the value of these movies because they didn't have profit, quote unquote, because they weren't in theaters. And that's just so upsetting because I think those are three incredible films. We don't get Inside Out 2 without bold original films like Inside Out. And so hopefully we continue to get to see some new original concepts as well as sequels as good as this. But overall, like Inside
Yeah.
Out 2, how do you feel about it? Like just general takes. Good, great, eh.
I loved Inside Out too. So yeah, I mean for Inside Out, like I remember really liking it. I haven't watched it, I don't think, since then. By the way, Luke was my favorite. Like Soul, I also really liked. I wasn't as high on Turning Red, but I do agree because if you've seen the box office numbers from Inside Out 2, it's gone like gangbusters. So it's really,
Yeah.
I think, affirmed that people want to like watch these movies in cinemas, which I also love doing. Like I said, like our favorite things to find an old Pixar movie, as well going to the cinemas, going to Pixar movies, such a treat. I think one of my first dates with Peter was to Monsters University. That's in my memory too. So
Love that.
I love doing all of that. And
Underrated
clearly,
one.
yeah, all of it's so good. Clearly the fans do as well because they came out in droves for Inside Out 2. So for Inside Out 2, I loved it. I mean, I knew I would love it because I was like, oh, the bad guy is anxiety. I'm like, you had me at anxiety. And it's such a fun concept and it's such an emotionally intelligent franchise to the point where I'm like, the kids like this. The kids get this. That's something I'd like to talk about. It's like, what age group is this for? It's definitely for adults. Like, that's how I felt.
Yeah.
Inside Out 2 isn't like, oh, you take your kid to it and you really gain something from it. Like, I feel like you take your kid to it for you. Like, I really feel like this is an adult movie with some pretty high level emotional concepts that's just really nuanced and smart. And I'm like, do kids know what anxiety is? Because I don't know that this is a movie for them, but I felt like it resonated with me as a 31-year-old.
It 100% resonated with me, and I definitely am curious to ask like the children that I encounter at my job and be like, "Have you seen this movie? Do you understand anxiety?" I want to like interview them and like get mini journalism going on my tours. But I went, like I told you before we started recording, I went twice. So I went on Friday night, and then I went on Sunday night. The luxury. I don't know if they have this in Australia. Do they have anything like any movie theater like loyalty programs? Because ours, we can go to up
No.
to 3 movies a week for the best one. So I like went twice. I went to 3 movies Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and I love
Yeah.
that. But
We were
they
just
don't have that.
talking about this because we don't have like AMC passes. We were literally just talking about this with my in-laws because I know all about it from
Yeah.
like my friends in America who do like the AMC passes, and you pay such a small. It's like $8 a month.
Oh no, it's like $25 a month, at least in
Oh, the
LA.
AMC one was like 100 a year, wasn't it? That's what
I don't know the specifics of like the movie pass way back when because I never had that one. But I know for mine is the AMC, at least the one in LA, is we pay $25 a month, but you can see up to 3 movies a week. So that's like if you go to 2 movies, and at least the tickets here in Los Angeles are like $19
Oh, it's
dollars
a
per
lot here
adult.
as
So like
well.
a movie and a
Yeah.
half, you already make like it's already worth it at that point. If you see 2 movies a month, I think it's a steal. So and
Yeah. Oh my God. And that's the kind of thing as well where you think like, will I wait for this to come out or will I go to the movie? And then like you'd always go to the movies, which would be better. We have like points rewards, so we do that. It doesn't give you like, it's not well, you pay a membership, but you don't get like unlimited movies. Like
is
you
it
still
more like
pay for the
discounts on
movie
concessions and
Yeah,
like
you
yeah.
get discounts on tickets and you get discounts on snacks, but it's not as good as what you guys have. Because even with your pass, don't you get like refills and stuff?
Yeah, you get free refills, you get
We
like
don't get that.
every $50 you spend on concessions, you get like $5 off.
It was actually really funny because when we went to Inside Out 2 a couple of days ago, I was like, I want all the popcorn. Peter's like, you want the biggest size? Because that's one bigger than we usually go. I'm like, I don't know how did I not make myself clear? I want the most amount of popcorn possible. So we usually get like pods, the chocolate, and then the popcorn, and then frozen Coke to share. And like, so that's like the sweet chocolate, salty, best combo. We screwed up because we didn't get a bigger drink. And the pods is the same size. So we finished those way before we still had so much salty popcorn. And we were like, this was we need to get a bigger drink. We get a bigger popcorn.
Big mistake.
It did not correlate. So I don't even know why we got a discount on it from points reward. But we needed free refills. That's where I was going. We needed free refills because I think like we were like pretty much done with the drink when the ads were still on.
Oh
And I was
no.
like, yeah, I was like, we screwed up badly here. Yeah, big mistake.
That
So.
I love that you were like, oh, the frozen Coke, because like I'm a big icy person. That's what they call them here, and I love those. Like I always
Icy?
mix all the flavors together. I'm like, oh, I need a little bit
Yeah,
of everything. Yeah.
obviously,
Uh,
yeah,
Now,
yeah.
do you mix the chocolate with the popcorn, or do you keep them separate?
Um, I know that people do like to put the Maltesers in the popcorn. I would do that. I don't. Just I feel like that gets messy in the movie when I can't see. I
Yeah,
just like eat the popcorn, then immediately the chocolate, then have a sip of the drink. Like I've got a whole thing going on, but it
you
was
have your
just the
system.
balance. Yeah, we usually, but the balance was very upset. We had so much popcorn left. It was such a bad idea, but yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
but well, you had a nice little. At least the movie was like tight, 94 minutes, I believe, runtime total, and it was like I thought it was longer when I got out Friday night, and then when I went to go get my ticket Sunday night, so that was the like so Sunday night it was definitely more. There were more adults at the theater versus like Friday was kind of a mix, and I definitely heard a lot more laughter. Like the jokes were hitting more on Sunday night, because I was like, oh, this movie's
with the
funny, and then
adults or
yeah,
with the kids, with the
with
adults,
the
yeah,
adults on Sunday night. And I
yeah.
was like, oh, it's not getting I thought I was one of the loudest ones in the theaters, and I don't like being the loudest laugher. Like I want to be somewhere in the middle. Like I don't want to be too loud, but I also don't want to be like boring in the movie. I want to be like part of the community of laughter. So then Sunday I felt like, oh, okay, I'm not crazy. This movie is funny. Okay. But I love this movie. It was so good.
Yeah. I felt like it was funny in a way that would not appeal to kids, really,
Yeah.
right? Like, a lot of the humor was like the puns were great. Sarcasm, even stream of
Sarcasm.
consciousness. I thought the brainstorm brilliant. That's
Yeah.
like, and for me, that's not like a hearty laugh, but that's like a wry chuckle, which I appreciate.
It's like, oh my god,
Sarcasm.
they're so smart. Like I wish I came up with that. Yeah.
It is. I
Uh,
mean, they're very good at like the world building puns. That's not for kids though. Kids don't understand why that's witty and clever. And I thought like the characters were really funny. Like the cartoon, they're all
mhm.
cartoons, but you know what I'm saying. Like the other nostalgic cartoon characters, which is again like kind of nostalgic millennial humor that we understand. Like Peter was definitely getting like the biggest laughs I feel out of the video game character.
Yeah.
I feel like that's like they probably get video game characters, but that's why I was thinking with the humor even like another good pun was the anxiety. That one
Yeah,
got a
I
lot for
love
me.
that
But is
one.
this for kids? Are kids understanding these puns? Is this for them?
I I will ask. I will ask around because I would like to know as well.
It
I
must be
thought
because it's getting good like audience ratings and stuff. If people were like, my kids hated this, then they would say. Like I actually read a few like responses that were like, my kids love this, and I was like, okay, good to know.
I'm glad then, because like I would love more movies like this that are like for the children and for the adults. I definitely there were jokes more directed at kids, like when Joy is like, "Oh, Ennui, can I call you Wee Wee?" And I feel like that was more for a child. But
Fair
like
enough.
I laughed because I'm also a child. So this movie was just such a good time, but it also hit. It does like the Pixar magic where like you have the first two acts and you're just vibing out, and then the third act will just hit you with a sucker punch of emotions. And I will say, did not cry as much at this one as I did Inside Out, the first one. I did tear up, it did hit, but maybe it's because we were expecting like Inside Out to hit these themes versus like the first one. It was kind of like, oh, this new original Pixar story, and then we just got blindsided by tears. At least I did.
Well, I
Um,
mean, you can never be blindsided by tears in a Pixar movie. I feel like that would be that you should be prepared for that. Yeah, I mean, for me, so my viewing experience was really strange because a couple of weeks ago, I got called on the day by my friend slash ex colleague who's now a journalist. Well, she's always been a journalist. She's an ex colleague, but she's a journalist, a beauty. No, not beauty. She was beauty with me. What am I saying? She's an entertainment journalist now for a magazine, and she was going to the premiere of this movie. So the way that the premiere was she was on the red carpet. She asked Amy Poehler a question. I was there filming her, much like Amy Poehler, which I thought was funny in Mean Girls. I was like, yeah. Anyway, and that was cool to see Amy Poehler. And then we went inside the opera house and watched the first like what I kind of thought was 20 minutes of the movie. But now having seen the whole movie, we stopped when they got out of the vault. So I feel like that was like a very large, like I said, it's quite a short movie. I think I watched like 30 minutes of like a 94-minute movie. I saw a lot, like I
yeah,
really feel like I got a lot of it. And then I was like, we have to see this as soon as it comes out because I've seen half of it, well, a third of it. That's a strange way to watch a movie. And then we did like an hour and a half. Amy Poehler did like an on-stage interview, like in conversation with Amy Poehler, and we watched that. So it was a very strange way to watch the movie. So I felt like really emotional watching it because I knew less and I think I hadn't maybe seen the trailer at that point, or I knew less about it going in. I knew it was Inside Out too, but like
Yeah.
going into that, then the movie, obviously I'd seen most of it. So going into that, I felt like emotional about watching kind of like anxiety be like this like manifested character
Mhm.
and kind of all those concepts. And I felt like really drawn in. That audience was great. Obviously, they'd all paid mostly to be there at like a proper Amy Poehler event. And obviously, people pay to go to movies, but they paid more money than that to go to this Amy Poehler event. And they were like laughing at every joke and like really like invested. I felt like really emotional at that point. And I was in the movie as well, but I felt like that really drew me in. And then I was like, and now I need to finish the movie weeks later. So that was my experience with it.
And you probably had time to like think about like where the plot was going, so that must have been like a really interesting way to view it, because you like got an experience and then you could like kind of like formulate your own version of what you think would happen and then see how they would subvert it. And I'm sure it was like very different if you like,
Well,
or and then like all comes back together, like probably like one of those like, is that a parabola? I don't know math
yeah,
terms that well.
parabolas.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, one of the funny things was like so we saw like the last thing we saw was the video game character like trip up all of the policemen until they went into the vault. And then the interviewer said to Amy Poehler, like, wow, I can't wait to see what happens with like the video game character and Disgust. Like that's a love story. And like then it's never brought up again.
Yeah.
That was one of my funnies because then like I would have thought that would have gone somewhere else and it didn't. Yeah, and I guess I didn't spend that much time thinking, wow, where is Inside Out 2 gonna go? But I was very much like finish the story.
Yeah.
So I'm glad I got to see it in full. But
I definitely like, so I like you, I tried to avoid the trailers. Like if I'm planning on seeing the movie, so like most Disney projects, whether it's Marvel or Pixar or Disney, like I will tend to avoid the trailer because I'm like, I'm already gonna see this movie. I don't really want to like know what's happening. But I did
oh, I
like
see the
know of
trailer.
I saw the teaser when it first came out when they introduced anxiety, because I saw all the memes that were like, I have like 8 of these in my brain. I was like, same. um like I love the little joke where she has like the 7 suitcases, because I'm like, oh, that's me packing for a 2-day trip.
Yeah, that's her emotional baggage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like I knew that there was a video game character. I knew that there were like the 4 new emotions in their names, but I was like so interested to see, because I was like, is this Wreck-It Ralph? Why is there a video game character in a different animation style? So it was a fun little like, and the way they like deliver those jokes, like they were really smart to like play it for laughs, but then nothing ever felt oversaturated where it wasn't funny anymore. Like they knew when to like pull the plug on the joke and move on to a different set piece, which I really appreciate in movies, because a lot of these movies these days of like 2023, 2024, I feel like need to cut more, whereas this was like, oh, I would have been okay with like another 10 minutes if needed, if they felt it was right, versus trying to like trim stuff that was not necessary. This felt very tight as a movie script.
Yeah. I thought that anger beating up Pouchy really hit me. In like pun intended, I guess.
Yeah.
And Fear was really funny. I thought Tony Hale was great. He was probably my favorite.
Yeah.
Now that he's doing Fear.
It did take me a moment to like get like used to the new voices, because Bill Hader and Mindy Kaling did not return as Fear and Disgust. Even like Anger sounded a little different. I know it was the same voice after Lewis Black, but even like some of the just like his voice changed with age, so I'm sure that was a part of it. But it did take me a little bit of adjustment. But once I was in, I was all in. And Pouchy was a great character, and I was trying to reference that before tripping over my words earlier at the start. But like, I offered you the rubber ducky, I offered you the tape, that like lives rent free in my mind when he's grabbing all of the dynamite through his mouth. And like you said, that's like for adults in a way that like, that was like giving Mickey Mouse Clubhouse Toodles references. My brother's 6 years younger, so I used to watch a lot of Mickey Mouse Clubhouse with the collar, and like, of course, the Dora, the Blue's Clues, the Barney of it all with Bluefy. So those were like, I feel, directly to the Gen Z millennial kids that grew up with those kinds of shows.
Yeah, like it was satire like of those characters.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I really feel like it's such an adult film because it's actually kind of like in some ways, I guess, educational.
Mm-hmm.
But like also I think like quite emotionally complex. And there were a lot of teenagers in our showing who were really annoying and loud. But I was wondering, like, so is it for like preteens and teens? Because I would have thought the teens are like, I don't want to go near it. I'm too cool for like an animated Disney Pixar movie. So I would like that would make sense because I feel like there's education, but it's also quite mature. Because like I feel like with the themes of the movie, like obviously the big like the it's like clear, but like the it would have been like easier and still probably a good movie to have just like made Anxiety the like out and out bad guy who's just like malicious and evil and is trying to like wreck Riley, and Joy is just the force of good. And here they are, like Skywalker, Darth Vader style, like clashing in that way. But they didn't like they don't go in that direction. Like if anything, one of the most powerful thing, the point of the movie, which was powerful to me, was about how like Anxiety is actually trying to help Riley.
Yeah.
Like I thought the most powerful image in the movie was like Anxiety crying once Joy gets inside the panic bubble.
That's the scene that like broke me. Like I was like keeping it together at that point, and then I was like, oh no, here comes like emotions. Like I'm getting emotional watching this, and yeah, that was like the most powerful thing. Like when you see Anxiety, like that one tear, like slowly, like shakily well up in Anxiety's eyes.
Yeah, like Anxiety is just struggling too, and I thought that was that was like and the panic attack stuff we can talk through, because there's a lot of like panic attack content in kids media now. Like I think it's like Mario was the famous one, is Puss in Boots 2, another sensational animated film who I feel like was kind of pioneering this like mental health stuff randomly in Puss in Boots 2, which is really good. But yeah, like that element of the fact that Anxiety is just struggling and trying her best, their best as well. I thought was really powerful. It like helped me think about like my own mental health battles, like and that's what anxiety is, right? It's like the same thing as like when we were cavemen, we had to be scared of things. We didn't get like eaten by rhinos or whatever. And that's what anxiety is. It's like, oh my god, I'm gonna get eaten by a rhino, but like we're not gonna get eaten by a rhino, and our body can't adapt to that. And then the fact that Joy could see her issues in terms of like the same thing, like trying to like fabricate this person and like force something to be one way instead of just like kind of allowing the whole person to be and like guiding within that. Obviously the point of the movie, but I thought it was done exceptionally well. And I know that what Amy Poehler talked about a little, like she didn't talk that much about the movie because it wasn't out. It was more about like her career in the interview I watched. But what she did talk about was like a big part of like was like toxic positivity, which is a kind of new concept, I think, since Inside Out premiered 9 years ago. It's definitely become a more popular kind of thing to talk about. And I thought that was done really, really well. Like, of course, you're wrong, Joy, to like send all the bad memories to the back of the brain. And so, yeah, I thought that they did that really well, but it's quite a nuance and like, interesting take on those emotions.
Yeah, and just like how the first one was like, oh, this is Joy learning how to like work with sadness as opposed to like keeping sadness away from everything. This was like another one, and like yeah, some of the beats were similar, but it's just all the emotions learning how to work together. Like one of my realizations watching it the second time was like, oh damn, this is just about a group of coworkers having different working styles and going on an adventure
Do your
together.
coworkers put you in a jar and then in a vault? Because I'm concerned. Should I be calling someone?
Well, I worked near Penn Badgley did for when he was Joe Goldberg and trapping people in cages. So potentially,
They could. I hope they're not,
but
though.
yeah, that so many of like the puns, like the suppressed emotions, like the brainstorm, you mentioned them earlier. Those really hit me. I will say, sadness kind of got like shortchanged a little bit. Like I was like, oh, I wish we got a little bit more sadness because she was such a great source of comedic timing in the first movie, and like she still had her moments. I think the hardest I laughed was actually when Anxiety was going to look for sadness, and she was under the cover, and sadness was like, and she's like sadness, and sadness is like no. that just like cracked me up.
Yeah, I was in two minds of like the fact that sadness is separated from them for like so much of the journey, because I felt like we did lose a little bit of the sadness, but I also felt like they probably didn't want to retread some of the same beats of like she could have been on the journey and then she probably could have had some sort of ideological argument with Joy where Joy gets really frustrated at her, but it would have been like very much the same as Inside Out. And I kind of respected that they didn't have to retread that because it was done and solved, and that relationship didn't need to be like re-explored, and it was like this new thing. So,
and they touched on it a little bit at the start. Yeah, they touched on it a little bit at the start with like sadness going down to like the sense of self pool.
Exactly.
And they like we saw a little bit of moments. Shout out to Bing Bong, who was in the corner of Joy's little bedroom area when the puberty alarm went off. Like you could see a statue of Bing Bong in his wagon. But I rewatched the first movie the night before.
Wait, where was it?
In the early scene when the emotions are sleeping before the new emotions
in
show
Joy's
up.
bedroom area?
Yeah, in like Joy's little area, there was a statue of Bing Bong in his wagon. Which I was like, shout out to my boy Bing Bong, because He's an icon. I was a big fan of Bing Bong, and like the first movie hit again. Like it still hits 9 years later. It's just so good, and the score is also phenomenal. Like Michael Giacchino's like Joy theme really hits. I just love this world. I was really apprehensive about a new one because I was like, oh, but the first one's so good, and then they knocked it out of the park, and I'm like, okay, give me another one in 10 years. I'm here for it.
I know. They could do it at every stage of her life. I was thinking that, and it would still be interesting because that's how emotions, like, evolve in a way that I don't think felt forced at all. Like, this felt very relevant, more
Mhm.
relevant probably to me, as much as I like remember the first film, which I also really enjoyed. But I think that the issue is not the issue, but like the like inevitably as we're saying, like some of the similar beats of the first movie, like they could do this every 10 years for like different phases of Riley's life, and I would find it interesting, but you're going to get to a
Mhm.
similar conclusion as we did, which is like all the emotions are good and have their function when used appropriately, which is true. Like you can't change that message. Like that's what they want to say about humanity, and like it's a good lesson, and that's what I really liked. Like seeing like we're not like banishing anxiety, not that they really would, but anxiety could have been more of like a big bad, but instead it's like
Yeah.
anxiety gets a nice chair and anxiety, and like, and I really like that because I've always said that like I feel that most people's most negative and positive traits are the same.
Yeah, and that's
Like,
kind of
and
what.
I've never really
the-
thought about my anxiety like that. Like I think about my OCD like that all the time because my OCD is like debilitating, but then also like really makes me who I am, and like I think that my perfectionism within OCD, like again, like completely debilitating, but then also pushes me to, I think, to be like better, and like my OCD pushes me to be like curious, like to a fault. And I think those things are good. I've never really thought about my anxiety as much that way. I still think it's probably of less benefit to me than my OCD, but it probably
but they're
because it's hard because
connected. Just because
these
like
are
OCD is an anxiety, like it's connected to anxiety. So that's at least like how
yeah.
I contextualize mine. And like I've always like tried to like focus on not just my weaknesses with my OCD, but also like kind of try to see how it makes me like observant and like a superpower in certain ways, or like passionate about things. Like where I'm like an obsessive Survivor fan because of my OCD. Probably it's somehow connected because like I wanted to learn everything about it. Just I'm sure that's something like the obsessive part of obsessive compulsive.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, same with me. But that's the
yeah,
thing with anxiety. It's hard because it's like it's an illness, but it's also part of who we are. So you, like
yeah,
my like I've had therapy that's like you don't want to like you like I have anxiety and like it doesn't define me, but it is such a like large part of who I am, and I do feel like maybe that's like the wrong thing to say, but I do feel like there are positives to okay, I'm like a highly wired person, like a
yeah,
highly strung person, which has like its negatives in terms of anxiety, but then that also feeds into probably like the passion and like that kind of that's good, like a high intensity person, like parts of that are good. Like even like things like depression, which are obviously is terrible, and that's starting to feel like even more like an illness that's not part of me. But even then, that might pertain to like being sensitive, or you know what I'm
mhm,
saying? Like there's parts of that that could be that are drawing on positive parts of myself, but in a negative way. And something like anxiety, I think they manifested that really well, and they and like visually, obviously with the character, but they manifested that in terms of like it is good to possibly think things through for the future and be prepared, but don't let it like rule you. But
mhm.
know that like this is something to think of. So I think they did that pretty well, which is quite difficult to do considering like that's as we're talking about now, like quite a complicated thing to think about yourself.
It's so complicated, and they like compacted it down for like a movie that is geared towards kids.
That's
But it's like
the kids.
such.
The kids aren't getting this. Surely,
Yes,
like there's a lot.
they're not getting all the new ones. No, no way. But like I think hopefully they like watch this because it is a fun movie. Like I think they will enjoy it even if they don't understand all of it. Like the nuance is not necessarily meant for them. It's meant for that's the part for the parents that they can use to like help teach them. Like I know like the panic attack representation is going to be hopefully very important for kids moving forward, showing that this is normal. This happens to people. Stress is a part of life, and sometimes like this happens, especially for people like me who deal with anxiety and depression and mental health issues at this level. Like a panic attack is normal, and I wish I had seen more of that when I was growing up, so I would feel like less alone. And just the fact that Riley, a cartoon character, is like these kids who might be experiencing these things, like that's going to be incredible for them growing up, that they can see that this is more mainstream now. And
Mm.
I also want one of those anxiety teas,
Anxiety,
and the
yeah.
chairs. There was another tea joke earlier. I don't know if you caught this one because I only caught it on my second watch, but it's a visual joke. So when they're going to camp, and they're examining the looks between like Bree and Riley, and then Grace, and the like her emotions are the next ones we see. One of her emotions is pouring tea for all the other ones, and then it says spill on it, and then she drops it. And then
Spills the tea.
Grace says spill the tea. Yeah.
That's
Or
great.
there's like a spill the tea joke there.
So many smart puns. But yeah, I think the emotional complexity was pretty major. Like I really loved to talk about like the panic attacks. Like there's again been a lot of like animated visualizations of panic attacks, which I think have been great and helpful. For me, I really liked the like behind the scenes emotional visualization of
Yeah,
anxiety
the
spinning around the
tornado.
console. Like
Yeah.
that, I'm like, oh, that actually is how it feels in my brain. And I found, and like I was thinking, like this is obviously now like a theme. Like some people might say, like oversaturated in the animated market, that panic attacks specifically have been so kind of geared towards this content. But then I was reading some tweets about it, and it's like, well, for kids who probably wouldn't know what a panic attack is, like it is really kind of amazing that the next generation now will grow up always knowing what a panic attack is. Like we'll always be ready for that if God forbid it hits, because of that like education through these movies. So I do feel like there was a kind of commentary I was watching about like, well, they're Oscar baiting with the panic attack stuff, and it is meaningful. And yeah, like I do think that there's like we get the mental health thing in, but it's also a movie that is dealing with these like with anxiety and with these like heavy themes of what it's like to be inside the brain of a 13-year-old adolescent. Like it also could naturally go to that place, and I think it did. So I think it worked really well, and that they did really well with it, particularly anxiety. Crying. The thing that hit, you know where I teared up, and this might be random, but like as they were creating the new sense of self, the anxiety one, the red one, the orange one, I kept wondering like what's it gonna say, like the way the old sense of self, like I am a good person, what is this one gonna say? And I thought it might be like, um I'm good at hockey, or like I have to be on the hockey team or something. And when it said I'm
I'm
not good
not
enough,
good
I was
enough.
like, don't do that, because that's so real. That was so good. That was just great writing.
It's like the writing of this movie, like, and all the details. Like, again, Pixar is like, it's hard to be like a good top level Pixar movie. And I really just to go back to like the representation aspect, like representation matters for me. Like that was like growing up in a very white community, like learning that, oh, there are Latino people out there. Like Wizards of Waverly Place was a very foundational show to me. Like Dora, and Diego, they were like important characters to me. So like those are just like about like that part of my identity. But I wish there was like more about like mental health, so I didn't feel like so alone for like being an anxious, emotional kid. And like this movie made me want to hug like young me, and like just like the childhood version of me, like taking like, oh, this is okay, and the future generations, like you said, will have this movie and see that this is normal, that they are not alone if they struggle with mental health issues like I did. So this movie is phenomenal. I hope that they show it in like sex education, health education classes growing up, like because that's like when I feel like it will really hit. Because I think a lot of people probably like the movie was more designed, and now that I'm thinking about it, I feel like the average moviegoer, besides like the people who like were fans of the original, would probably be like parents who had kids around Riley's age in the first one, who are now, instead of 13, they're more like 21 or 22. Like, so that's like, I feel like they are the ones who grew up with this franchise more so than I did. I just enjoyed it greatly, but I feel like it was a little like more for my brother's demographic, for example. And he's about to turn 21, so like he's around closer to where Riley would have been in the first movie.
Yeah, but I feel like it really, like I feel like I need it now probably more than I
Yeah,
would at the age of 13. Like so much spoke to me on an emotional level, where I feel like I'm old enough and hopefully wise enough to again like understand what it's saying, and like I need it just as much. Like I'm not any better. If anything, I'm worse. It's really hard to be an adult.
okay.
So
What was the line
yeah.
that Joyce said, that like, oh, when anxiety comes in and life gets longer, like you just have less joy, and like that hit me, like because
Yeah.
it's harder to find the joy the older I get, I feel like.
I do feel like I saw some criticisms of that. It's like, don't tell the kids that there's less joy. But like in a way, that was because Joy had been like outcast, and Joy finds her
Mhm.
way back in a way that's like, okay, maybe we can manage all these things. Like maybe we can find a way, even within this difficulty, to have joy. Like joy comes back and has like its supreme place in the mind. So I think that it's like it might be difficult to have joy, but we can still find it. One of the things I loved as well was when they're like, Joy, she wants you, and there's like that kind of twist where like now Riley, more evolved, more of an adult, can like ask for joy. And I really like that actually, because one of my like favorite therapy notes, I love how I come on the podcast and just like pass on my therapy. One of my favorite things was like a couple of years ago, maybe like 3 years ago now. I'd like was so upset. I'd like read a Reddit thread about me that was really mean, and I had therapy that day. And my therapist was like, you can choose to be okay. And I was like, I absolutely cannot. Did you not hear what they said about me? And like, she was like, no, you can choose it. And I feel like that's almost the best way I've wielded that, because I was like, okay, fine. It's Friday afternoon. I'm going to have a good weekend. And, I did. And I always think back on that. And even though it's really, really difficult to do that, like, I don't want to put people down on like, you control your emotions, just be happier. I think like one of my favorite lines when Joy was like, I'll just tell anxiety to, like, that was great too. But like, it's not about that. It's more just like, there is some type of like active and intentional stuff we can do around. Like, I found like, even when I like log off Twitter for a couple of days, I feel a bit better. Like, you can make active choices, or even, and it doesn't always work. It is really hard, but there are ways that you can maybe be like, I'm in control of this. And it's very empowering. And I felt like for Riley to be like, I want to like finish the hockey match with joy. Like, I want to feel joyful. And then Joy like responds to that. Again, not a perfect science, but I was like, oh, that's like a little bit like just quite maturing. That's like very active. And I don't know if that's exactly what they were trying to say, but like that's what I took from it. And I thought that that was powerful too. So maybe it's not that you have less joy when you get older, but it's that it becomes more difficult to have joy. And you have to find it where you can and seek it out where you can, and like be really active about it as much as possible within like difficult circumstances.
And it's really interesting that you said that therapy note, because literally the last few therapy sessions I've had, we've been talking about like radical acceptance, which is very hard for me. And it just like hits all the notes about what you were talking about in terms of like, yeah, like you can like accept it, but it's also like not agreeing with it, but you still can like choose to move forward. And that's like, and I like what you mentioned about the like taking Twitter breaks. Like I like regularly like will delete the Twitter app off my phone and like not have it on my phone for a while, and just like to like have a little bit more disconnection from it. And it's just sometimes nice to like escape things that like like
Yeah.
are enjoyable, but then it's like it's high variance where like you can have incredible interactions on an app like Twitter, but then also like you can see a lot of stuff that like gives you anxiety, like the news, like all politics, all this stuff. And that's just like, for me, I can't even imagine like someone who's more in the public space getting that stuff. So it's just important to like, this movie is all about like finding balance, and like that's also kind of what therapy is like finding the balance in like the emotions. And that's at least something that I've taken away from my experiences with mental health professionals over the years, just trying to like survive through all the like chaos that is positivity, negativity, and life combined.
Yeah. It's like upsetting how much clearer my head is when I've logged out of Twitter for a few, like, because I do love Twitter, and I'll never, I mean, like, love hate, and I'll never be off Twitter. And there is a lot of positives that I get from it. But like, even like in the wake of like the last, Survivor season, I was like, this is just a lot.
Yeah.
And then I like logged out, and I was like, oh, I feel so much freer. And
legitimately, sometimes I will like take breaks from things, and I literally feel like, oh, I feel
yeah,
like
I know.
lighter.
It's
physically.
upsetting. And I'm more productive as well. I'm like, damn, am I like constantly functioning at like 70% of myself because of the stupid app? But yeah, I mean, I intend to go to Inside Out too, and like be able to take things away like I've been to therapy. Like, I know like it's cheap. It's a hell of, especially with Hoyt's Rewards, a lot cheaper than therapy. But I definitely intend to come out and be like, even if it just affirms things that like I know about myself. But I even think like visualizing, I'm not even gonna try to say that like what anthropomorphized. That's not right.
I think you got it. I'm not gonna try it myself because I'm too scared to say that word. But
I feel like even visualizing it is helpful to me. Like, firstly, I think I did learn like your anxiety, like not learn, but like was reminded like even anxiety can have its function, but keep it in check. And then like just visualizing it, as I said, like the spinning in the panic attack, and the just like even anxiety at all. Like now it's like I see you, and you're in my sights. Now I can control you because I know you. So that's what's like. I feel like that's good. It's a really good way to communicate it to anyone. If I have any criticism, I would say that I felt it could have pushed some of it a little further. like in terms of like one of the big things I felt like was for all like the negative orbs that eventually they realized like, oh, like you can't, you know, be a human just forgetting about that stuff. Actually, like it will define you. Like how you respond to it actually will make you who you are in different ways. I felt like all of that was a little one note and hollow.
Mhm.
It was like, oh, she waved to the wrong person. Like there can be embarrassing stuff. Like we have Embarrassment, who I thought was a great new character. Let's have the other ones though. Let's have like, oh, you were mean actually. Like you didn't hug. And there was a bit of this coming into the actual movie, but like you didn't hug your mom in front of your friends. You hurt her feelings. Like and now you feel bad about it. Like let's be a little bit more active on you know, or something even bad happened. Like you know, your grandma's really sick. Maybe weird to take you to like sick grandma, but you know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? Like other bad memories that you might want to repress that I know Joy would want to get rid of that aren't just like, oh, you fell down in front of people. I thought that was just a little one note and could have taken it to like, and she was doing it now. She was doing the wrong thing, but it's like you did the wrong thing. You unintentionally hurt someone, or maybe even intentionally hurt someone. You're selfish, but like it's good to know that so you're accountable to it in the future. I thought they could have pushed that a little bit
Yeah.
more to the point where like even like the post credit scene of the like big reveal, I kept being like even during the credits, I was like, where is the big secret? I'm like, they didn't bring the video character back, and I will know what the big secret was. And even that was like, I burnt the rug. She's like, oh, what about how we peed in the pool? I'm like, someone had to have done something. Like, you did something wrong in your life, Riley. Like, I know you're perfect, but let's bury some of those thoughts and deal with the complexity. Maybe that's the extra 10 minutes of the complexity of like actual negativity that's not just like a little hollow.
No, I agree with you. I kind of feel like we got a cheapened end result a little bit because I wanted her to apologize more towards Grace after she knocked Grace over at the end. And I felt like we didn't really like have Riley like acknowledge and reckon with the fact that she hurt her friend physically in that hockey game. So I feel like, and like obviously they were trying to do a lot. It's not the time to maybe add like guilt or shame as an emotion at that point in time of the movie. But I felt like there was a little bit more that they could have pushed the envelope further. I my conspiracy theory in my head was like the deep dark secret was gonna like take the hood off and it was gonna be Sully from Monsters Inc. Because like
That would be
I was like,
great.
yeah,
Marvel it up.
yeah.
The
Um,
cross franchise stuff.
but just to go back to what you were saying about like the physical manifestation of the anxiety, real quick, is like that really hit for me because like my with my ADHD, I like feel like a lot of times like it's a chaotic game of ping pong where the ball is just flying everywhere inside my brain, or it's like that block game where you have the you're trying to use the little slide thing at the bottom and ping pong the ball back and forth. It just feels like so much chaos. So I
Bing
like that
bong ball.
representation. Bing bong, great.
Mm.
You should do one of the off-season wand-offs to the Bing Bong song
You can
or
do
the
it.
Triple Deck
Send it in.
Gum song.
Send it in.
Yeah, I don't. I need to think of lyrics.
It'll be
Uh,
very, very niche.
yeah, very, very niche. But yeah, no, I like what you said about like the lack of like, oh, it was very one note. Were there any other criticisms that you found throughout the film?
I enjoyed it. As I said, I thought the humor, I don't think it was like hilarious. I think it was like Riley funny, like Riley, but that's not how I
Yeah,
mean it. Like WRYLY. Um, but I thought it was really enjoyable the whole way. I guess it's like the journey for the emotions was kind of secondary. I'm not saying this is a
mhm,
criticism, just want to like explore because I felt like from what I remember of Inside Out 1, that journey with Bing Bong had higher stakes for the emotions. Now I know there are
mhm.
emotions in a magical brain, but like I thought this was high stakes because it was for Riley. Like these were like big decisions that Riley's making out in the real world. If anything, it felt incredibly high stakes. But like their journey was more just like an interesting exploration of this like beautiful world that they've built, and like the visualization of the world is beautiful. And as I said, I loved like the tent town. I thought the parade of the careers was really funny.
That
Like
was so
all of that was
good.
great. It was just all a bit like how are you going to get to one place and then back to another place. It didn't have really any stakes in it, but I don't know that that's a criticism. I guess it's just kind of like because what in the first one, the stakes are higher for the emotions
The stakes
themselves,
are
right?
higher for like all the emotions, but the plot is primarily like joy, sadness, and Bing Bong. And then we see. I was actually surprised at how much we saw anger, joy, anger, fear, and disgust in the first one when I rewatched it. Because in my head it was like all about joy and sadness and Bing Bong. But they do flash back quite a bit to them. This one definitely felt more like, oh, it's a race against time versus
Yeah,
the other one was more like, oh, we are racing back to Riley. It was also a little bit of a race against time, but it was just different, and I think it's
but like
harder
Bing
because now
Bong,
there's more characters to account for
yeah.
now.
Well, Bing Bong dies, right?
Yes, Bing Bong
Bing
does
Bong
die. He
sacrifices
stays in
himself.
the like cavern of like lost memories.
Yeah.
When yeah, so Bing
The
Bong,
stakes
Bing
are
Bong
high.
disappeared.
They lost a
Yeah,
soldier.
they did.
The stakes weren't that high here. Like they were just like on a river. Like they were just chilling, you know? Like it
Well,
was we were having a
yeah.
fun time.
As soon as the broccoli hit the bottom and went back to the sense of self, I was like, oh, so no one's gonna like, we're not gonna have like a gut punch like Bing Bong.
Yeah, we're not gonna like lose fear, you know, like
But I love the line that Fear was like, "Oh, we're gonna be friends" when Anxiety
yeah, I
first shows
loved
up.
it.
Yeah,
Fear and
like,
anxiety's relationship was a highlight for me.
but I liked how a lot of them mirrored each other, like envy and
Yes.
disgust, embarrassment and sadness. And she's like, "Hi, big fella,"
I
and
loved embarrassment and sadness's relationship.
yeah,
'Cause
because
like
embarrassment
that
is
is
helping.
yeah, and it does feel very connected. I really like the embarrassment character. Like you knew he was good. Like his whole journey, like as anxiety is like right hand man, but then also like what's like the good thing to do. Like that was communicated very well in silence.
Mhm.
So I like embarrassment to me was like a favorite new character.
And just the small touches of like how they have the pink highlight for the control board, but then at the end, sadness touches it a little bit, and it's like mostly pink. Like just tying it back to like the orbs of different colors from the first movie. Just
Yeah,
like the
that's good.
visual language of this film was incredible. Like the big brainstorm, again, more of the
Brainstorm
puns.
was the best. Yeah.
The pillows being like little animators, like because I feel that I felt that it's like, oh my god, I'm trying to fall asleep. Why is my brain not shutting up? And it's all
That
these
was
little like,
great.
what's this, like, and then Joy with the cat that you mentioned earlier, and the flowers that anger has substance. Um,
I thought that was the most like actually like rousing scene on the journey.
mhm.
Because like yeah, that like had stakes to like getting them to like basically unionize or to at least, you know, revolt against anxiety was great. And yeah, it was very much like they're using the imagination against her. And like that all I'm like, yes, like I'm way too imaginative. The boy I can imagine every negative scenario that could ever happen. And anxiety's like, but this is good. They keep you prepared for every negative scenario. Like, no, I understand you feel that way and you're trying to help Riley, but like that's very actually bad for me. Please let me go to sleep. I'm exhausted.
The point that is just like Anxiety is trying to help Riley. Like for the first like act of the movie, I'm like, I hate Anxiety, the villain, because she throws Riley out. But then like as the movie goes on, like you said, we realize, oh, she's trying to help Riley. She's doing it because she loves Riley, and that's like such a nuanced like representation of a quote unquote Disney villain. Because Anxiety is like the villain of the movie if you're like trying to make it easier for kids, but Anxiety, like this is a very nuanced portrayal of a Pixar villain versus like a
Yeah.
Lotso Hug and Bear,
Yeah,
for
exactly.
example.
That's exactly what I was thinking of when I was like, they could have just made anxiety the big bad. But I thought that the anxiety was like really well played. Is it Maya Hawke who played anxiety?
Yes, yeah, Maya
It was
Hawke.
a really nuanced character to have to play. Like, firstly, you have to like get the complexity of like she is bad, but only because she's just worried to like she's her own worst enemy, which is so true of anxiety for all of us, right? Like, doesn't that happen so often? Like, don't we do the wrong thing or think the wrong thing just because we're afraid of getting hurt? Like, oh, I'm like mad at my friend because I think they've hurt me. Like, really, I'm just upset. Like, you know, I feel like maybe I feel unwanted. You know, like that's what anxiety does all the time. It gets you to put up walls or lash out, but like maybe not in like a way that you're trying to do the negative thing, but when a way it's based on fear. As Fear said, we're going to be great friends. It just is. I am scared of this. I'm scared I'll be rejected. So let me push back first. Thought that was really well played in the characterization. And I also thought what was good about it was it had to play like the actual characterization had to play up like all the tenets of anxiety that I feel we feel. And it did that really well. Like, I don't know if this makes sense, but as an example, the fact that anxiety was always like, I'm so sorry. Like they would do the thing and then just be like, but I'm so sorry. Like, isn't that anxiety to be like, was this okay? Are we okay? Like,
Yeah,
did I upset you? Like, I thought that was great.
and just even like the physical mannerisms of Anxiety, and then also like they embody like ennui, like being like lounged on the chair the whole time, like with the little app. We haven't really talked about like ennui or envy at all. Like any takeaways on those two specifically?
Yeah, I mean, I felt like they didn't hit for me as hard as anxiety and
Yeah,
embarrassment. Envy was just, I guess, I I don't know that envy. It was so many characters, so it's hard. I don't know that
yeah.
envy played out so that it felt resonant to me about like, oh, like yeah, that's how you know that's how envy can be really negatively effective for me. That's how I use it badly, or that it didn't really make me think of anything about myself, even though I
Yeah,
obviously can be a very envious person. But like, I feel like it didn't hit. my core in a way that anxiety did.
But again, it wasn't as fleshed out as like anxiety, and even
Yeah.
embarrassment got a little bit more. Speaking of not fleshed out, nostalgia barely got any screen time, but
Well,
she
that
was
was just like a
hilarious.
bit.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
people were mad before the movie. They're like, "That's not an emotion." It's like that's like a one note joke.
But
To
also,
like
you can feel
because we're
nostalgia as a
all
5-year-old. Like I'm
yeah.
pretty sure. Yeah,
That would be adorable
yeah.
to have be a nostalgic 5-year. Remember when I was 3? No, I feel like, that's because we're all nostalgic millennials watching this movie. Like, that's for us. Is there anyone you would have, like, changed or added? Like, Ennui, I felt was kinda random, but also made sense for a teenager to be, like, blasé and the sarcasm and, like, how we grew up and just be like, "Ugh." Probably something we don't even necessarily grow out of. Like, it did make sense, but it's probably not what I would have jumped to if I was, like, creating adolescent emotions.
I think it makes sense, especially with that a generation of like iPad kids, like the like having ennui on the screen. But like I will be honest, until I saw the marketing, I had no idea what that word, how to pronounce it, what that word meant. And then it was like the one of the marketing posters. A lot in LA will have like, oh, they'll have all the different characters next to each other on these walls, and it will be like ennui, also known as boredom. And I was like, oh, okay, that's what the ennui stands for, because maybe I'm just illiterate in that sense, and I didn't know what that
Well,
word
it's
meant.
French. Well, I think they could explore that further, but it wasn't right for this
Yeah,
movie where, like, sadness and ennui and all of that could combine into depression. So it's like it's something that's there, and it's probably
yeah.
something that, like, takes over you in adulthood. I know I'm, like, not a super apathetic person, so,
I
like, it
I
doesn't resonate so
I can
much with
relate to
me.
like the lack of apathy, but I also do feel like I need a lot of stimulation, like to like that's why I'm like always have like a TV on or a podcast listening, or just like I always like having something else going on because I don't like quiet, and I think that was like at least how I, not that it's the same in this depiction, but I think there's like stuff there to explore in potentially a future movie. I
Yeah,
did
it worked for her as a teenager. Like, I don't know, like, as an adult, it's like that might be phased out. That's an interesting thing too, is like how much things come and go through age. But yeah, ennui for her to be like, you know, blasé in conversations like as a teen, like that does work really,
yeah.
really
Uh,
well, but maybe doesn't play out forever. But yeah.
I read, I don't remember if it was for the first one or for this sequel, but I read somewhere that they like wrote a list of all these different emotions down, and then they like had to cut them and like, okay, envy and jealousy are too similar. We're going to combine
Yeah,
them
yeah.
into one. So, so I feel like I read somewhere that they had up to 60 emotions originally, and then they like cut them
Oh
down.
God.
And, like, there's so many emotions that they could deal with. I still think like if they do a third one, I think like guilt and shame somewhere, like I feel like is something that I would like to see explored more in the future. But we haven't really like addressed at all like the hockey like summer camp part of it. I like it felt so real as like growing up, like you want to be part of the cool kids, and at least like at one of like the first glance I was like, oh, is Riley maybe like a baby queer? And I was, because I like she's like obsessed with Val, but then like it took me back to like middle school where I was like, oh, like am I attracted to the senior on my volleyball team when I'm in ninth grade, or do I want to be just like him? Like that was kind of at least how I interpreted it as someone from that community, and that was like it was just like cool to see like all these high school insecurities where like you want to like you look up to all these people, and then but at the end of the day, it's just like you also need to stay true to who you are and not like conform. But it's hard as a high schooler because you have so many emotions going on. But what did you think of like the hockey summer camp subplot?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it structured it well in a way that made sense. Like, these are like an actually devastating thing that her friends are going to like a different school and that she won't like know her place. Like, they set it out really well. I do think that if we're talking about like why Envy didn't hit as hard, and we're saying it was quite a short movie, quite compact, which is good tight movie, but like I do think that that's something that could have been explored because as you're saying, it's like the relationship to Val that could have been more of a focus. Like as an
Mhm.
example, she feels a lot of anxiety. If we get anxiety, she feels embarrassment. So we even like get embarrassment. But like something like Envy was, I think, also kind of hollow because there's so many characters, but like hollow in terms of like, oh, I like her hair. But like if they dove into a little bit like, I wish I was her. Why can't I be her? Why am I me? Why like they could have really dug into that as like envy can be really difficult, especially if you're a teenager who, as they're saying, I'm not good enough, who like hates yourself and you want to be someone else. Like that's the envy as mixed with the anxiety. So they probably could have shown more of that. And then that probably could have, been expressed in the relationship with Val a little bit. But I do think that it was like it structured it all very well. So it just we didn't get enough of the parents. But
I
they weren't
was so
there.
sad, especially I think Riley, both her parents are very attractive, and we were missing out on like I one of my favorite like running bits in the first one was like the emotions of the parents, like when they're having
Yeah.
dinner and then the dad is watching the hockey game, so the mom's like, okay, let me put that Brazilian helicopter pilot back on TV that we could have been with instead. Like I missed the dynamic of the parents. We got a little bit of the mom in the beginning, but the dad was
Yeah.
very absent from this movie.
I know, and that's
Um,
Kyle MacLachlan, isn't it? Like
I
that's
believe so,
really
yeah.
wasted. Kyle MacLachlan. I thought that the credit scenes were really funny. How the mom's like
Yeah.
worrying so much, and then the dad's like, "Okay, back to the game." And I like, it's easy, but it worked. It made me wonder because I'm like, well, we had the core five emotions for everyone. I'm like, do you have your other emotions? Did they go away? And then like anxiety did come back from the mom. So I'm like, this is interesting. Everyone's just kind of like in control now, and maybe they've gone to the bathroom or they're having a snack. Like this was actually good. Not everyone has to be on deck all the time. Like
Like it's a
work is
coworker
right.
situation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there should be rights for the emotions. Like, what is the schedule? They're
Yes.
up and working the entire time Riley's up. Now she's up even longer. So they have to get like they're like it's
They need
light
to
at 1 in the
unionize.
morning. Yeah.
Yeah. Union rights for the inside out
They should
emotions.
exactly
And
100%.
anxiety gets to go on a like 20-year vacation for the mom, like because they even make the joke. I was like, oh, there you are, anxiety. Welcome back. Like,
But I don't welcome back for 20 years. I think it was like welcome back for like
true.
this week.
Yeah.
Like,
That makes more sense, honestly.
yeah, I
Yeah.
thought like yeah, that's why I was like, oh, anxiety, like that's the best way to manage anxiety, right? Like it exists, but it can chill, take some breaks, some long breaks. Maybe that's the best way. But yeah, I think that the world building that they've done, like it all like again, it's also like beautiful, but it makes sense. You're like, okay, there are the like long term orbs, and then they go into, and then there's a sense of self. Like it all works, It's all
And I like
seamless.
that the sense of self was physically fluid as well. Like it was like, oh, it's blue. I'm a good person. It's like I'm not good enough. I'm bad at hockey. I'm a great friend. Like it's
Oh, I
like
love
it's
that.
just
It really hit for me because I'm such an absolutist person, and I am also like Riley hard on myself. And I feel like if I do something wrong, I'm like I'm a bad person. And like again, just the visualization of like you don't have to be defined by one thing. Like you could be many versions of things. Like probably you're like for all of us, we're probably like an imperfect, hopefully largely good person with like strengths and weaknesses. Always good to be reminded about that, even at the age of 31. So yeah, it did
I
a lot. It was a very emotionally intelligent movie.
I agree with that 100%. Like it's again, Pixar is like not enough things can be said about like how great they can be when everything hits for their movies. And like the writing, the visual language, the voice acting, like everyone delivered, and it was a movie for us. And it feels like so rewarding, like to like leave the theater and be like have so much to think about like ourselves, but also like I mean I went through the movie and I was like, oh, the second time I was watching, I was like, oh, who would be on my Mount Crushmore? Like I was like trying to
Right,
think
that
like
was a good one
everything.
too.
Yeah,
That was
I
great,
had
yeah.
like some of these. It's like what would be in my stream of consciousness? Like I was thinking about myself if I had like the little emotions coming into, and maybe they are there, and we just don't know.
That would be crazy.
Yeah.
If they, like, nailed that one and they knew, that would be crazy. I mean, this was a movie for, like, the anxious people, which is great. That representation. I feel like Peter liked it, but I liked it a lot more. Like, Peter doesn't get panic attacks. Lucky person. Peter's not like, I don't think Peter's an anxious person. Like, Peter can have anxiety about specific things, but I wouldn't say he has, like, general anxiety. He wouldn't say he has anxiety. So I feel like for him, that visualization didn't manifest to the degree. Peter's not in like constant therapy, like Peter's a very well adjusted human being. But I felt like for him, he was like, yeah, it was good, but he wasn't as much. I was like, no, it told me about myself. It told me I was good enough. Okay. It's important. I need it. It was cheaper than therapy. Can I have more
Yeah,
popcorn?
next time if you're like ever having a like instead of like texting my therapist for an emergency session, I'll be like, "Hey, can we just turn on Inside Out too? Maybe that will
Good
like
lessons. Yeah.
decompress my
Yeah.
feelings."
It affirms things that you need to
Yeah.
remember about yourself. That's good. Good one.
So was your favorite scene of the movie the anxiety at the end, or was it like was it something else? The
I think
ethnomusicologist balloons?
I think my favorite scene was them unionizing the imaginative drawers. But I think for me, like the most important, like the panic attack scene
Mhm.
probably was the most important scene of the movie. But I don't know if I enjoy it the most. It resonated with me the most. But I
So,
really enjoyed the pillow fort scene.
so once you do all the survivor moments that define the season, you can do Pixar movies in the big bong ball machine. That's how we
This
call it for the
one, the
Pixar.
Bing, that would be great. The bingo bong ball machine. Yeah, the defining moment of this movie was
Is the
definitely
anxiety
anxiety.
tornado? Yeah,
Yeah, definitely spinning around the console. That scene
yeah,
speaks for itself. It's great.
but the like, yeah, I think that was probably my the favorite. We didn't even talk about the Liz Wilcox moment of Joy turning her head around,
Yeah,
being like, "Delusional? Of course I'm delusional." Like that. Have you
yeah.
seen the clips of the like side by side?
I saw that before I saw the movie.
Okay.
And so what was interesting is I thought that that was gonna be, like, the kinda, like, culmination of the like, the peak of the movie where she, like, has that breakdown. What I liked is that was just, like, one little thing on Joy's journey, and then she just kept on rolling, and had to go to another breakdown later on, which was great, so
But yeah, my friend Reno was like joking, like this movie is feelings have feelings when we were talking about the first one before the second one came out, and now this is and like it explores that even further. Like I think it's important for us to see joy crying and anxiety crying and like all these different like feelings within the emotions because they are so nuanced and like you can be sad and joyous, and that's like again the point of the first movie at the same time. So
yeah.
I just like the representation and like anger was softer in this movie. Like he was helping Joy. He was like the team like cheerleader at the end where he's like doing the
That was good,
avalanche
yeah.
and then he had
Yeah.
Pouchy at the end.
Yeah. I feel like with that scene, it was funny, which was also good, but what I liked about it was, like, Joy is the representation of what she's trying to make Riley become.
Mhm.
Just like again, like toxically positive, like all joy all the time, and then like you will crack. And like that's showing like what she would have done to Riley. So I mean anyone would crack under those circumstances, but I like that like anxiety is the manifestation of like if you go to extremes of that, what she's trying to make Riley become, and then joy is that for herself too. And we see like the negatives of that. So that scene, that was great. Let her crack because she's carrying them on her back. Like
Mhm.
honestly, justice for Joy and what she's trying to do. She's not always right, but she's trying her damn.
She's the Boston Rob of
Yeah,
this movie.
truly.
Just want to shout out the like voice cast of some of the people we didn't talk about that like I heard their voice. I'm like, oh my god! Like Yvette Nicole Brown was Coach
Yes.
Roberts, and I was like, oh my god! I got so excited about her. Ron Funches was the Bluefy character. And like I just loved like these random characters that I did not expect to pop in these like small little roles, like June Squibb as nostalgia, that all these little fun Easter eggs that they had in the movie that I really appreciated. Like the voice cast, besides like obviously like it was a little bit noticeable at the start, like they hit. Like I even if Envy didn't have a ton to do, I love Io Debris. Like she's
She's
great
in
in everything she
everything.
does.
Yeah.
She's literally blowing up right now. She
Yeah.
is like I know everyone we talked about Zendaya when you were here in LA, but she's another one of these stars that is like the moment. Her, Austin Butler, Zendaya, all these people just like keep starring, and she's great in Abbott Elementary also, like as Janine's sister in the second season.
Yeah.
Um, is there anything we haven't hit on yet before we get to our little activity that we planned?
No, I was gonna say that I'm really behind on Abbott Elementary, and I watched a couple of episodes last night for the first time in a couple of months, and then I saw the school, which we saw on your tour, and then like the cafe, and they walked across the road, and I was like, Peter, look, this is exactly what we saw. And I was like so excited about it, and I went back and like I was like picturing the whole thing. It was very cool to me. I'm like, we're there. It was so
Yeah.
cool.
Oh, they have a whole Friends exhibit now that like that with costumes from the show that like they just installed like 2 weeks after you left. I was so sad that like you missed
That's
out.
my envy now. That's my
Yeah.
I'm so sad, and
I'll
that's
take
my
photos for you.
sadness.
I'll take. We gotta
Please.
get everyone get Shannon to move to Los Angeles. Let's start
I
that
gotta come
campaign.
back now. Oh my
Yeah.
god. Okay, well, just send me photos.
I will
Very
definitely
good.
send you photos. They have at least one costume, and then they have the little station where they have a little 2D cutout of Joey and all the clothes, and then you can put your head in there like you're
Oh,
Joey
that's
wearing
so
all the
fun.
clothes.
Stop it. I
I'll
can't.
stop. I'll stop. I'll stop.
The console's open.
What was the last episode of Abbott you watched? Just out of curiosity, because
So I watched like 3 in a row. So I'm trying to think about what the order was. I watched the one with the library. I
oh,
watched
with
the last
Susie from
one.
Rugrats.
The what?
Susie from the Rugrats. That's the voice actress. She's the librarian.
Oh! Now that you've said that, yes. Oh my gosh. I think the last one was the panel that I watched.
Okay, yeah. With the CPR training.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so you still got a
I'm so
couple good
behind.
episodes left. Yeah,
Yeah.
Abbott's such a good show, such a good feel good show.
Yeah. I'm
Um,
like, I'm glad that I have them, but I'm also
yeah,
so behind. So I'm
it's
like,
like you don't want to finish them because then you want more to look forward to.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
then at least there's season 4 around the corner, but that's still like months away. Should we get
Yeah.
to our activity of comparing
Yes.
global survivors to the emotions? I
Yeah.
started thinking about some of these. Some of these were harder than others, but if you have any off the jump, who do you have in mind? Like I have one that I feel like you probably aren't thinking about for Joy that I would love to pitch you on.
Well, I couldn't think of any, and so I asked on the podcast I was just on, the Jeopardy Summer of Survivor, and we all gave some takes. But for me, the clearest one that jumped to mind instantly that is just that's like 100% right has to be that Fear is David Wright.
I had David Wright on my list for
Okay,
Fear.
so
Yeah, Fear is David
that
Wright.
one's
Yeah.
and I love Fear, and I
Like I
love
was
David
like,
Wright.
who could be Fear? I was like thinking Brandon Donlin. I was thinking like a couple
Not
other people, but I
Brandon.
was like, oh no, David. Yeah. I'm just
Yeah.
trying to shoehorn Brandon Donlin into this podcast.
And well, he was
uh,
giving the takes on the he was
yeah.
there giving on the
Oh,
podcast, but he didn't say himself. But I feel like Brandon, he's a little bit too cool for school in his own
valid.
Brandon
Yeah.
way, in a way that David it just is Fear so much in all the ways I
Especially
love
his
about
first
both
outing.
those people
Yeah.
and characters.
No,
Yeah.
so the only questions I watched was like the SWV one, and I too am a fake Philly. Bryce is gonna be mad at me as well because I didn't know that the Taj lyrics. So soft spoilers. I did watch I was watching just for a couple moments before I went to go like prep for like other stuff and then this podcast, but I can't wait to listen to it tomorrow. The
Yeah,
Jeopardy.
we put Brandon
Um,
on. Yeah.
yes, I didn't know that. I was like, oh, spoiler, but it's okay. We're big Brandon
Yeah.
fans here.
Yeah.
What about for Joy? I wrote down Big Wendy. I feel like Big Wendy. I feel like she's just so bubbly, and maybe it's not 100% because I don't feel 100% good about it, but I feel like she's like somewhere in the Joy energy because she's like very bubbly, very personable, very likable, and she generally comes across as happy all the time. But I don't remember Edge of Extinction all that well. You probably aren't a fan of thinking about that season all that much either, but.
Yeah. Well, I couldn't think, but the panel gave two really good options. They said Marianne
Oh yeah, she
and
was as
T-Bird,
well.
and I'm like, I think it's
T-Bird.
T-Bird.
I think it is
Yeah,
T-Bird. Yeah.
yeah,
No, but I think it is T-Bird. So we got
100%.
Joy is T-Bird, Fear is David Wright. For anger, I have Debbie Wanner specifically in Game Changers when she's like, I'm pissed. Like that's
Yeah.
like
I
a
had
thought that I have
Dan
for anger.
Lembo. I felt like Dan Lembo
Ooh,
could like
that's a good
voice
one.
anger. They gave a couple as well. Who did they? I think they were saying. I think Oma was saying Rory. I can't remember all the other ones they
Oh,
gave.
yeah. That's a
I'm trying to
good
think about
one.
like anger, like because anger became kind of good natured. Like I'd say like a Russell or something,
I feel
but
like at times George, at times I feel like could
he's
be
not like
anger, but
angry, is he?
yeah, that's the thing. He's like more like he could even be more like disgust at times. I feel like than anger because he's like a quiet anger usually, like
Yeah,
a
we need like
simmer.
a hothead. We need
Yeah,
people in like the attack zone, you know, like
Rob
that's like
Zabachnik. Yeah,
yeah, is it? I don't know. I don't think we have a good one. I still kind of feel like Dan Lembo. It's kind of like
I
gruff.
mean, yeah, that's a good one. Trying to think of any like sound off. If you're listening to this podcast, please like give us some
Yeah,
suggestions
and
as
just like
well.
a gruff older man. That's like the anger way, right? So yeah,
Disgust for me. I had Courtney Yates. I feel like that's a pretty like
that's
I feel like
good. That's great actually because I was thinking like
or
Venus.
Shawnee maybe as well. Like I feel like Shawnee could be a pretty
Shawnee,
like
I think it's more Shawnee than Courtney Yates because I feel like
okay.
Courtney is very sarcastic, but Disgust is a little bit more like you shouldn't wear that or like oh, like
Yeah.
I feel like actually Shawnee is perfect for Disgust. I actually feel
Okay.
like that is perfect.
And then of the original core 5, we have sadness. I'm like, there's not a ton of like sad,
Really
sad
sad.
survivors. Like
Oh, that's really hard.
I could think of
I
Big
should have
Brother
thought that.
people easily, like for sadness, but like not as much Survivor. That one was a struggle for me. I was like literally like going through every season who could be sadness, and I struggled with this.
Oh, sadness is really hard because it's not. I'm trying to think of like quitters who might have been sad and quit, but even like Hannah Rose and stuff like she wasn't sad. She was just out. Actually, she was powerful. Um, who was sad? I'm gonna have to think about it. We need like a perfect sadness.
Like who gives
People,
Eeyore energy? There's not a ton of people who like have Eeyore energy from Survivor. I feel like those people don't tend to get cast on Survivor.
I feel like this is quite good. Like, does
I
someone
mean,
want to be sadness?
there's obviously the photo that Dalton Ross loves of Steven where he is sadness in that specific moment, but I don't think Steven is sadness.
No, I wouldn't
Like,
say that he's sadness all up. trying to think about like 0 vote finalists. Not that I kind of feel like Sadness might not get a lot of votes because people might be like, I really have to like console you a lot.
Yeah. I'm like trying to think like who like I'm racking my brain for this one. This one is a struggle.
It's really
Um,
hard, especially because on Survivor, I feel like it's such a heightened environment. So when people
uh,
feel positive and negative emotions, like we've seen like a lot of anxiety, as we're saying, like fear, joy, like these are all extremes. And sadness is an extreme, but I feel like in that environment, it's more there are more like it's not as kind of like blue and withdrawn as
I haven't seen a
sadness
ton
is.
of. I haven't seen the Australian Outback first episode in a long, long time. But could Deb Eaton be sadness?
I
Or
don't I can't feel like I don't know enough to
I
say,
can't.
you
Yeah.
know.
What about some of these new ones? Like, is there anyone that stands out for like nostalgia? That could be Brandon Donlin, where he's like talking about all the past seasons of Survivor. Like the super fan is nostalgia. Like
You really
whoever
just want to get
is
Brandon
for
in this.
requisite season. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of looked like Jillian, Nostalgia's actual
Yes.
character.
um.
Um, Anxiety could be any of the like I feel like I'm a good manifestation of anxiety and all of
Mhm.
my like high key nerdy girl archetypes. Give me like a
Like
Hannah
Aubrey,
Shapiro.
Hannah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think could be anxiety.
I'm trying to think
As they
of
said, right? Like you
embarrassing.
and I are going to be great friends. So David Wright and Hannah, the fear anxiety duo.
Yeah, like I mean, also Ben came to mind from this last season just because of the panic attacks, the dreams.
Yeah, wow.
So like
So much
that,
panic
but
attack
yeah,
representation lately.
it really is a lot of that. Embarrassment is hard for me. Like I mean, oh, you know who's sadness? Lil.
Oh, sorry. Mike said Lil. I think Mike was one who said he actually did. He said it
Yeah,
on the podcast 2 hours ago. So
yeah.
that is it. That's it. Oh,
But
yeah.
embarrassments. Who would be embarrassment? Like I don't. This one's also hard. Like the newer ones are
Very
like harder
hard.
than the OG ones.
Embarrassment's really hard because a lot of people who are going to be really embarrassed wouldn't like sign up to go on national television.
Mhm. That do be the truth.
And what about like
Um,
I also find envy really hard.
Envy, my best one that I wrote down was Amanda Kimmel, just because she's always like the bridesmaid, but like I don't that doesn't really like work for me other than
Yeah,
just like the explanation. It doesn't like fit her personality.
not
I
really the
think Kat
character type
maybe
as much.
Kat in One World, I feel like had a lot of envy.
That yeah, that's actually
Uh,
great. That's a great call. Yeah,
um,
I wish like oh they get to make the merge. I want to
yeah,
make the merge. Yeah.
I want to make the
Um,
merge. I want to win immunity. I want to
yeah,
create a blind side.
embarrassment is hard, but it's our last one, and I really want to someone really purple.
Chelsea from Ghost Island.
But like someone who wants to be purple, someone who's like
Yeah,
maybe like Purple Kelly. It's like I don't want to be here and I want to leave.
yeah.
Like don't look at me.
I'm trying. Yeah, embarrassment is a really hard one. Like, I mean, um, Billy Garcia. I don't know. Becky.
Maybe, but I feel like
I
he
feel like he
was
owned it
yeah
though.
yeah he did. Damn, we've done so well, and now like at the last hurdle.
Like this is gonna bother me all night. Like I'm gonna be like stressing out. This is gonna be my pillows. Like they're gonna be like drawing the different survivors. I'm just gonna think of like different survivor players.
What about
Um,
like Jake?
I could see that. Yeah.
Towards the end when he was like
Towards-
really
Yeah.
down.
Yeah. That
Because
like
I think
I
that
did think
the thing
about
with
him for sadness for a hot moment, but I was like, no, he's like too happy to be sadness, but he could be embarrassment.
I think that there are like the thing is with Jake is like and the thing with embarrassment for both of them is that like embarrassment is clearly like a good soul. You know,
Yeah.
embarrassment, like even against orders, helps sadness is like a kind, soft heart, but in ways that's like a little bit too soft. And I feel like Jake towards the end of the journey, I think that that kind of works.
Yeah. I now I just want to see Jake and Lil on the Amazing Race together.
We've really nailed these character assignments,
I
I
think so.
find.
I think we did a great job, Shannon.
We really
Like
did.
high five to us. Um, any would you ever dye your hair like Valentina or like Val
No,
and the Firehawks? No.
I didn't think that
Like
was good.
I didn't think that was like a real trend. I feel like that was just like
No.
I get their names are the Firehawks, but I feel like usually people do more than just like a little piece of their hair.
Oh,
Like
and I loved the breaking in to read the notebook. That was
that
so
gave me
good too. And
so
then
much
like
anxiety.
that was like that. I know. I was just like, I don't do this anymore. But like, I'll just look at these comments about me. I just want to know. And then it's like, well, you don't want. It's like, damn, that's why I didn't want to know. Like, that's why you don't do that. It's very real. Yeah.
Yeah, but unless you have
Do
anything
you think
else
she
to
made
add,
the team?
We didn't talk about this. I like that they left it open-ended. I think the smile indicates that she did, but I kind of
Yeah,
wish
I
that
think
she
so.
didn't. I wish we just saw the notification on the phone and then we could have interpreted versus like the
Yeah.
smile itself. Like I think
I
they
think that
could
like
have cut
tipped
a
the
couple
scales a
frames
little bit.
earlier. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Like if it was just the phone. Because the thing is, like, the message is, it doesn't matter if you made the team, like, you'll be okay. Your emotions are going to evolve. You're going to handle things well, even bad things. We're not going to throw it to the back of the mind. You're going to know this. You're going to deal with it. Um, and like that's the point. So it doesn't matter if she made the team, so we don't find out. But then they leave it on the smile, but the smile's not ambiguous because even if she's going to deal well with hard things, she's still not going to smile if she gets cut from the team,
Agreed. Yeah,
right? Well, she doesn't
that
make
was
the team.
another quibble that I had with the film. It was like, oh, wish it was a little bit more ambiguous. This feels like not as open ended as I'd like it to be. Because I think the whole message, like you said, was that things will work out in the end.
Or
Yeah,
you'll deal with them well, even if they don't.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
like you will
Okay.
survive throughout, like regardless of what happens. And I feel like that was kind of just like if I can do the Felipe cut, I will cut that those last 3 frames of the film.
I don't
Yeah.
think I would because I'm also like, damn, I really want Riley to make the team. She has been through it. And she's good at hockey. Let her make the team, damn it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I want to know, like, is it like why the coach changed her mind then? Like, that's the curious part of me. Like, that's what I want to know. But maybe we'll
Well, maybe
find
she's
out.
seen that she's
Yeah.
evolved, that she's matured, which she
True.
did, has since, since that kind of
Hmm.
revelation.
Exactly. Yeah, that makes sense. We'll probably find out in 9 years when they come up with the
Yeah.
Inside Out 3 if she made the team or not.
Yeah. I'll be annoyed if
um,
they don't mention it. It's like, well, that was 9 years ago. We don't need to talk about it anymore. Like, I'm an adult
we
now. I
got we
don't,
need
don't
we got
care.
flashbacks we did not need for this one. Like at the beginning, like just catching everyone up on the emotions. I feel like this one we do need a catch up for whatever
Yeah, I
happens.
just want to know. I think she made the team. I think that they thought that it would be like, she finds out, and either way she smiles, because either way she's okay. But like, no, she'll be okay, but she's still gonna be unhappy getting a text that she didn't make the team. So
Exactly.
it did. It had a point of view. Yeah.
It did. Yeah. Well, otherwise, do you have any last statements about the film or Pixar or anything you
No.
want to get off your chest about anything related to this topic?
No. I mean, I got a lot off my chest. Thank you for having me. This was great. This was so
It
much
was a
fun to talk about the
delight. It
movie.
was
Yeah.
a great joy to have you on the podcast, and now I am sad that it is over. But where can the great people keep up with you and everything you're doing, Shannon?
You can find me at Shannon Gates when I'm on Twitter, you know, but I'm not logging out. Or Instagram at Shannon Gates, which I rarely log out of Instagram.
That
I feel
one,
like
I feel like
Instagram is, yeah.
Instagram is like the normies for the most part, like people I know in real life, and then like celebrities that I follow. So it's like,
Yeah,
okay,
cat
less
content.
they don't come at you, whereas Twitter, like anyone from any corner of the internet can come at you. Whereas
Yeah,
Instagram is very like curated. I feel like it's more of a safer spot. I would like to
yeah.
think, but now that
I
I
mean,
say
I've been
that, I don't
attacked on
want to jinx
Instagram
myself.
too, but like
Yeah,
it was more specific. But yeah, Instagram for the most part. Instagram rarely makes me sad. It is distracting,
hmm
but
lots of
yeah,
cat videos, even on my
so many
feed,
cat
and
videos.
I'm
So
sure
like,
there's
how
a
can you
lot more
be
on you.
so much?
Yeah.
Because I'm doing it on purpose. Like I like they literally will be like, "Are you interested?" I'm like, "I'm very interested. Very. That's why I'm here. Give me the cat content now."
We didn't get the cat from the first movie where we saw the inside of the cat and it was all cats in the
That
emotion.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
why doesn't she have a cat? It's like she's nice to the neighborhood cats. Get her a cat. She loves cats. Get her a couple of cats.
In the
Mom and
next
dad,
movie, if she gets a
I wish.
dog, are you going to be upset?
Yeah, because she's the cat person. I think that's been
Yeah.
made abundantly clear. So
Uh, yeah. How are your cats doing,
they're
Angelica and
good.
Elijah? Yeah.
They're menaces. They keep me up all night, but in a good way, I guess,
Yeah.
because I love them.
Yeah. Not to throw it way back to the early RHAP days, do we have a hashtag for this episode if people made it to the end of this
Ooh,
podcast?
what about Lil Sadness? No, that's
Lil
sad. That's me.
Sadness?
What about
Uh, who did we say was Joy?
T-Bird?
T-Bird Joy.
T-Bird Joy. That's better.
Yeah.
They'll be like, what?
um, but yeah, and with that said, in terms of me, this episode will be up. You can check out my new pop culture talk show with my friend Quandel that we do on the Brazilian Dragon Network. That's both on YouTube and on every podcast feed. And then also next week, I'm going to have a Media Made Me episode, which Shannon was recently, as in like recently of my last two Media Mimi episodes, even though we recorded that way back in like November. She was one of my last guests on that. We're gonna have one with Nicole Horn, TikTok Nicole, which I'm very excited about. So that's what's coming up on the Brazilian Dragon feed lately. Plus, if you watch Challengers with Zendaya, there's still the Latanya podcast we did about Challengers. So that's some recent stuff in the feed. Otherwise, thank you again, Shannon, so much for joining me. I will be now nostalgic about the time we had together. And until next time, everyone, obrigadero for listening. Goodbye.